I knew that that would be the toughest mentally for me to take on, and I really wanted that challenge to start the new year. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So my name is Ashley Jumease, and my channel is all about nutrition and my healthy lifestyle journey. For 2022, I decided that I wanted to start with a fast, and with that fast I wanted to do the Daniel fast. So I chose to do the Daniel fast at a suggestion of friends, as well as just looking more into connecting closer with God, both physically and spiritually. So to do that, I wanted to dive deeper into who Daniel was and why this fast is even popular. So first, with this Daniel fast, Daniel fasted actually twice. So Daniel was a prophet in the Bible who served God faithfully. And in the Bible, there are two major accounts of him fasting. The first being in Daniel chapter 1, and the second being in Daniel chapter 10. So in chapter 1, Daniel fasted eating only vegetables and drinking water. And in the second fast, he didn't have any meat or wines or any types of spoils like that. Or with the first fast, Daniel decided to choose only vegetables. It was along with him and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They all did this fast of eating only vegetables and drinking water. And that was to prove to the king's followers that they would actually be able to, for their bodies to look more full and healthy compared to the other advisors to the king who all were eating the king's spoils. The problem of the reason why they weren't wanting to eat those spoils anyway is because those actually were foods that God didn't want them to have. And so in order to be loyal to God, they were disloyal to the king. And they actually proved to be right. With only eating vegetables and drinking water, they were able to actually look fuller and healthier than the king's men who actually had the king's spoils. And so it's been a pretty popular fast for people to fast in this way of only having vegetables or having less of the foods that they would traditionally eat for 21 days. And so with my fast, I chose to have 7 days where I fasted of only eating vegetables and drinking water. And I also drink green tea. So for me, I decided to really plan out how I would do this Daniel fast. I really wanted to be focused, and I wanted to be as successful as possible so that I wouldn't be starving. It was actually pretty difficult the first 2 days to complete the fast, and that was just because I really was craving sugar and additional sweets. It's so difficult not to have any additional fruits or any sweeteners, no honey, no agave, nothing like that in daily foods. And so not having sugar really was hurting me the first couple days. I was really struggling. And so with that, I knew that planning things out was really going to be the best for me. So with that, I decided to plan out my proteins, any sort of side vegetables that I would have, and then I also planned out my my carbs. So my proteins were black beans, kidney beans, and edamame. And people may not think about like the types of proteins that are in vegetables, but vegetables actually do have good amount of proteins. It's just not as much as meat. And so with a half a cup serving of black beans that has 8 grams of protein, kidney beans have 7 grams, and edamame actually has 11 grams of protein. And that's where like I wasn't feeling like I was really hungry. I ate as much as I could, and I actually felt very full. And so that part wasn't really difficult. Getting in the extra vegetables was really important, just to get an additional set of micronutrients, especially because I wasn't eating fruit. I wasn't having any additional proteins of meats, no additional carbs of like chips or granola, which I would typically have no oats, no oatmeal. So because I wasn't having grains, no bread either, it was really, really important for me to have in all those extra things as much as I could and have as much of a variety as I could. So I stuck to foods that were typically green, but I also threw in like carrots as well as corn. But my main green vegetables were leafy greens such as kale and spinach. And then I also added peas. Those became really important for me to have. And those have a little bit of protein too. Not as much as edamame, but what I decided to do as far as like compounding my nutrients, I would mix the edamame with the peas so I can get as many nutrients in as possible. I also decided to saute Brussels sprouts. I roasted them in the oven too. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of onions, because I used a variety of both canned beans and dry beans, when I was cooking the dry beans, I added carrots, celery, and onions, and those 3 really gave a lot of flavor to the beans, and they just cooked for hours. When cooking dry beans, it's really important that you get in as much flavor as possible, otherwise they'll taste really bland. And so with cooking the kidney beans, for example, I soaked them overnight, and then I cooked them by boiling them first on high heat for about 30 to 45 minutes to get in a lot of flavor. And it was really important for me to salt the water as the beans were cooking. And that's also, like, once I boiled them too, I was also adding in the onions, the carrots, and celery. And then after that first like 30-45 minutes, I turned it down, and then I just had it simmer for another about hour and a half. With that, the carrots, celery, and onions all became very, very soft. And I want to say that with the yellow onion, it actually became so translucent, like I couldn't even see them after a while. So it wasn't like it was a really harsh taste, because I am not a fan of onions at all. I hate them, but I knew that they would give that flavor that I needed for the beans, and so that's why I added them. And then also with having the celery, it gave that extra flavor, extra nutrients that were going into the meal. So that's where like compounding the vegetables really came in handy. So for carbs, I had red potatoes and sweet potatoes. Most of the time I just sauteed those because I knew that they would take a while to cook. For the red potatoes, I cut them up each time, and seasoned them with salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and just like stuck them in the oven for about 20-25 minutes. I like my potatoes crispier, so give it more of that crunch, kind of like a French fry, but without all of the extra oils. And I actually did coat the potatoes in olive oil just to make it so that it wouldn't stick to the pan. And so that was the way that I had the red potatoes. I had them often with the vegetables too. I also had sweet potatoes in 2 different ways. So first I would just bake them whole in the oven. I would cut off the ends, and I would poke holes or stab as much as I could these sweet potatoes so that they could cook all the way through, and I would just wrap them in foil individually and roast them in the oven for about an hour. For the sweet potatoes, I would also cut them up just like I did the red potatoes, but instead of just adding like any garlic powder, I would add salt, pepper, and cinnamon, and that would give it more flavor. And it actually smelled really good, and that is what made it easier for me to look forward to my meals each time. Okay, so those are all the foods that I ate during the Daniel fast. It really made it really easy to be on this type of fast since I was planning out all of like the foods that I would eat. I ended up going to the grocery store twice, only because I didn't buy enough food the first time I went to the grocery store on Saturday. And then when I went to the grocery store again on Tuesday, it was right after a big snowstorm, and so most of the foods were cleaned out. So the foods that I would typically get fresh, I ended up going a lot of frozen. That's when I had a lot more rice cauliflower, which was really, really good. I had never actually had rice cauliflower before doing the Daniel fast, but it lends a lot of flavor, especially when it had really good seasoning to it. And just to kind of go off for a second, when it comes to eating vegetables, it's really, really important that they're seasoned well. And I don't mean as far as like dousing them in sauce and making things like super creamy. That's really where you get to add a lot more fats to the vegetables, and you take a lot of their good nutrients away. So instead of all of that, like the simple seasonings of salt, pepper, garlic powder, cinnamon at times, like those really made a difference as long as I took my time. It was really hard the days that I was working to do the fast because I was working long hours and I couldn't really get away to cooking even though I worked at home. Instead, that's when meal prepping and cooking large batches, especially of like the beans, made it so much easier for me to just put things in the microwave, heat them up real quick, and eat them and then get back to work, just because my time was just so short. But I was still eating all of the nutrients that I needed so that I wasn't feeling like I was going hungry or feeling weak or anything like that. So I have a few tips that I want to share for what really worked for me, and if you're trying to do the Daniel fast, will definitely work for you. You have to do these. So the first tip is that it's really, really important for you to plan your meal. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for you to do this if you want to be successful with the Daniel fast. Now, if you're trying to give yourself a lot of variety, that's where planning out the meals is really important too, because you'll know what you need to have as far as ingredients for each day. Also, leftovers are your friend. If I chose to eat new meals every single day that I was on this Daniel fast, it would have been so tiring and would not have worked at all. But really, eating leftovers saved me so much time, so much energy. It was just really convenient. So another way to make your meals convenient as you're going through this Daniel fast is to take away your tempting foods. So anything that's super salty, a lot of fruits. We didn't buy anything like that before starting this fast, just because I know that things were gonna go bad. I know that they would be tempting for me to eat, and I just did not want to have that happen. I wanted to be as successful as possible. I didn't want to go through any cheats, and I really wanted to make it so that this first time of me doing the Daniel fast was really as successful as it could be for both my mind, my body, and my spirit. So another tip is for you to eat at home. Eating foods out while doing any sort of fast is really difficult just because you do not know what restaurants are putting in the foods. When it comes to any sauces, dairy might be in it. When it comes to any sort of entrees, you don't know like how everything is being prepared. Salads are pretty much a safe bet. I actually did go out for the last night of the Daniel fast. I ended up getting a warm kale salad with sweet potatoes and roasted cauliflower. It was really good. I got it from True Food Kitchen. It is a chain and it was definitely delicious. I was a little hungry when I finished eating it, not gonna lie. But overall it was pretty tasty. Definitely well seasoned, and it actually came with a horseradish vinaigrette, and I had no idea before doing the Daniel fast that horseradish was even a vegetable. So that's what made it pretty easy for me. Oh, so one thing I forgot to mention is that I also had snacks while on the fast. However, my snacks were pretty simple, so only peanuts and seaweed. Peanuts are a great way to get healthy fats. As far as I know, they're the only nut category that actually constitute as a vegetable, and so that's how I was able to eat them. No any types of seeds, no almonds or walnuts or cashews. I couldn't have any of those, so I stuck with peanuts for that way. And seaweed was a great way to get in a lot of micronutrients. It wasn't necessarily the most filling, but I did get a little bit of energy every time that I ate one of the packets. And I just got some seaweed from Trader Joe's, but they sell it, as far as I know, at any grocery store. My last tip is to choose the best fast for you. So when it came to what I wanted to do personally and spiritually, I really wanted to only consume vegetables. I knew that that would be the toughest mentally for me to take on, and I really wanted that challenge to start the new year. And now that I'm done, I'm so glad that I did it. And it's really good mentally to know that I have that type of discipline where I can restrict things that may not be serving me all the time. So on to a couple questions that I received about doing the Daniel fast. First, was it hard? Yes. It's only hard because it's different from how I typically eat. I eat meat, mostly just lean meats as far as chicken. I never really had a taste for beef, but I love fish. I love different types of seafood, whether it's calamari or shrimp, like crab, like I love that. And to not be able to have that for 7 days definitely was an adjustment for my body to take in. Another question I received was, did I lose weight? Answer is yes. I lost about 4 pounds on the Daniel fast, so in 7 days I lost 4 pounds. Typically a healthy weight loss is about 1 to 2 pounds per week for sustainable weight loss. So because of that, I'm not too sure if I will actually keep off this 4 pounds that I've lost from the Daniel fast. If not, that's okay. It wasn't necessarily my goal to lose weight while doing the fast. It just ended up being a product of it. Okay, so my last question I received was, did I work out while on the fast? So yes, I worked out. However, I did not go to the gym, nor was it a really like vigorous workout of me going for a run or lifting heavy weights, just because I don't have heavy weights at home and there was a snowstorm. So it actually snowed twice. So because of that, I didn't have the temperature. One is very cold, but I also didn't have the safety for me to run outside, and the gyms were closed, so I couldn't go there either. And I didn't feel comfortable driving to the gym. So yes, I worked out, but I didn't burn as many like calories as I typically would have in a day. I did do yoga a couple times during the week though, so that was at least a way that I burned some energy. Also, on the first day of the Daniel fast, I had my first personal training session, and so that definitely burned a lot of calories. However, my body was probably utilizing the stores from carbs and protein that I had from the day before. Okay, so those are my tips and all of the things that I did to complete a 7-day Daniel fast. If you want to know like the vlog, each meal that I had each day, I did record all of that. I will leave the link to that in the description bar. I will also leave the link to my 5 simple tips for weight loss, just in case you are looking for ways to lose weight in the new year. Don't forget to like, comment, and share the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.